بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. ما بعد, السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Firstly, before I start the short reminder, I want to apologize for not going through the topics that have been covered in the previous days. So I hope what I'm about to speak about is not a repetition of what the brothers have already covered. That's a shortcoming on my side. I didn't quite have enough time to pray. Jazakumullah khair. The topic for today, inshallah, is about the purpose of Ramadan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala outlines this purpose in Surah Al-Baqarah, in the first ayah, in the first of the series of ayat about the rulings and the virtues of Siyam and the purpose of Siyam, of fasting. The first ayah, in the first ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Allah says, O you who have believed, Siyam or fasting of the month of Ramadan has been prescribed for you, and it's been made obligatory for you, like it was prescribed for those who came before you, for other nations of other prophets as well. لعلكم تتقون. And the purpose of this is so that you may achieve taqwa. So in today's talk, I'll try, inshallah, remind myself and our dear viewers of practical means of achieving taqwa, right? And we'll start off by, inshallah, firstly defining the concept of taqwa. Essentially, taqwa is there's various definitions that ulama have given. Yeah, one of the most frequent, most popular amongst the speakers and the khutaba is it's almost like erect a shield between you and the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded you. And therefore this gives you a protection against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's punishment. It's like a shield, right? So essentially it is امتثال الأوامر واجتناب النواهي. It is acting upon the injunctions, right? Upon the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and staying away from that which He has prohibited, in a nutshell. And other ulama and also the Sahaba, the companions, they gave some beautiful definitions of taqwa as well. One of them is from Ali radiallahu anhu. So as I said, before we go over, we mentioned the practical steps of achieving it. Let's try and inshallah and have an understanding of what it actually is. Some of these comprehensive definitions. So Ali radiallahu anhu said, I believe, he said, التقوى is al-khawfu min al-jalil. Taqwa is having fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you fear the consequences of disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. الخوف من الجليل والعمل بالتنزيل. And taqwa is acting upon the revelation, acting upon the Quran, not just reciting it. We know this is the month in which the Quran was revealed, but you recite it as well as you acting upon it as well. Yeah, and the messages in the Quran and the lessons in the Quran should permeate all aspects of your life, all aspects of your dealings and your mu'amalat. So he said, Ali radiallahu anhu, taqwa is al-khawfu min al-jalil wal-amalu bit-tanzil. Is having fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and also acting upon the revelation of Allah. And also taqwa is wal-rida bil-qalil. He said being sufficient with little. And whatever sustenance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you is being happy and being content, and saying that is sufficient for me, alhamdulillah. And still expressing your gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the third aspect of it. And also وَالْإِسْتِعْدَادُ لِيَوْمِ الرَّحِيلِ, and preparing for the day of judgment. Preparing for the day in which, not al-rahil, the day in which you will depart, the day of departure, pardon me, not the day of judgment. Preparing for the day of departure, which is essentially a preparation for the day of judgment. So preparing for the day of departure. Now about this day of departure, I had something ajib, very, subhanAllah, it shook me when I heard it, right? I think one of the ulama was asked, or it was said about one of the ulama. I think this is one of the shuyukh of Imam al-Shafi'i. Imam al-Shafi'i. I think it was said about him that if he were to be told that he's going to die, so I'm just talking about the fourth aspect here that Ali radiallahu anhu mentioned, preparing for the day of departure. They said that if this, I think his name is Waqi', this alim, this sheikh was told that he was going to die the next day, he would not change anything about his day-to-day schedule and about his day-to-day plan and his activities. Allahu Akbar. And when I heard this, I was amazed, I was shocked, and I was sort of disappointed in myself. Like some of these ulama, these righteous people, so even if they were to die tomorrow, there's very little that they would change about the activities that they perform during the day. Why? Because every single day for them is organized and set out, right? There's always a time for ibadah, a time for salah, there's a time for reading the Quran, there's a time for dhikr, there's a time for visiting the sick, there's a time for answering people's questions, there's a time for fulfilling people's hajat, their needs. And their days are so organized, they're always in such a state of vigilance and organization, mashallah, and self-discipline, that even if they were to be told that they were going to die tomorrow, they would be prepared for it. Allahu Akbar. And this, it really did, it shook me. It shook me. And to be honest, since that day, I only heard this about less than a month ago. And I said, you know what, during Ramadan, I'm going to make it one of my aims to try and become a better time manager. So be more disciplined, right? Not just depend on like these sessions that I have, right? You know, a lot of people are very timetabled. Their mentality is almost like a timetable. They have a timetable mentality in the sense that if they have a meeting, or if they have a class with their teacher, or if they have a class with their students, this is good, or if they're teaching or learning, they use this as a means of, it boosts their morale and boosts their iman. But the moment one of these classes is cancelled, they have no idea what to do. Yeah, they don't have the self-discipline, right, or the organizational skills to then go and reinvest that time into something else, right? But a disciplined person, I mean, one of the aims I've given myself is to try and manage my time so in a way, develop a sort of like a schedule, a mentality whereby the moments I have free time, I know exactly what to do with it. And my aim should be to use that time in order to prepare for the day of my departure. وَالْإِسْتِعْدَادُ لِيَوْمِ الرَّحِيلِ. So hopefully, inshallah, now the topic, the meaning of the word taqwa has become relatively clearer for the brothers and sisters that are listening. Now we'll go over some practical means of achieving taqwa, inshallah. Yeah, practical means. So number one, before you start doing all these the halal and the recommended things, you should stop doing haram. Yeah, you should abstain from doing haram. So if there's anything in your life, for example, if there's any cutting of ties of kinship, this is haram. Yeah, if you've cut your ties of kinship with your parents or with your siblings or with your relatives, right? Yeah, this is something you need to start basically making amends before Ramadan. This should have happened during the first couple of days. It's still early days, inshallah. We're still in the first week. So if there's any haram thing, right, that you've done or that you continue to do, abstain from that immediately, because that will almost is going to corrupt. Is going to corrupt your Ramadan, is going to reduce the reward that you attain from Ramadan. And God forbid, many of the nawafil, many of the voluntary acts that you perform may not be accepted because you're not doing the obligations, because you're not doing the obligatory things, right? And it's obligatory to stay away from haram and to do that and to perform the fara'id, right? So it's important for one to abstain from the haram before they start doing the halal. And this again, when we come back to the essence of or the spirit of the essence of fasting, is very important, right? For example, you stay away from food and from drink and from fulfilling your desires, your sexual desires with your spouses. These are all halal things. So it wouldn't really be very wise for you to be staying away from these mubahat, these permissible halal things, all the while indulging in haram. So stop doing the haram as well. Yeah, this is the main. It starts with taqwa starts with abstaining from those haram things that you might a haram thing that you might have done, whose consequences might still be continuing, or something haram that you're still indulging in, whether it is haram, a haram way of seeking knowledge, as a haram way of seeking a living, or any other impermissible activity that you're involved in. And regarding this, the honorable Sahabi, the companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his name was Jabir ibn Abdullah. He said this regarding the importance of staying away from haram first, especially in a state of fast. He said, إِذَا صُمْتَ فَلْيَصُمْ سَمْعُكَ وَبَصَرُكَ. He said, when you fast, then let your hearing and your eyes also fast. What do you mean, let them fast? Let your hearing and your eyes also abstain and stay away from haram. Let your eyes stay away from haram. Lower your gaze and don't look at that which is haram. And let your ears also perform fasting. Abstain and stay away from listening to that which is haram. And he said, وَلِسَانُكَ عَنِ الْكَذِبِ. And also safeguard your tongue. Make sure that your tongue also fasts. And make sure that it abstains from saying that which is haram, from saying things that are even, to reach a level of taqwa, you don't just stay away from haram. To get to a higher level, you start staying away from even doubtful things. Doubtful things, you're staying away from them for fear of indulging in the haram. And this is extreme. This is it couldn't be truer for anything. It couldn't be more true than in the case of the tongue. So not just staying away from saying things that are explicitly haram, but things in which that are doubtful as well. If you hear a report about someone, oh, this fulan sheikh is like this, or this so and so scholar is like this, or this so and person did this, someone gives you a report, or you hear something on social media, don't utter that, don't pass that on without verifying the information. Don't speak about people's honor, right? And don't sort of disrespect the ulama, scholars, disrespect groups of da'wah, just because of a particular thing that you heard on Abdullah.org or Abdulrahman.org or Abdulmalik.org. You just heard one thing in one website, and suddenly you have a complete understanding, and you start passing judgments on people and organizations and on ulama. People are way more knowledgeable and close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than you are. So this tongue, safeguarding this, extremely important. So Jabir ibn Abdullah said, وَلِسَانُكَ عَنِ الْكَذِبِ. And safeguard your tongue from falsehood, from speaking falsehood. And he said, وَلْيَكُنْ عَلَيْكَ سَكِينَةٌ وَوَقَارٌ يَوْمَ صَوْمِكَ. And when you're fasting, you should be in a state of tranquility and ease and humility, in a state of calm, not in a state of anger. Some people are, you can barely get a word with them. SubhanAllah, there's barely a smile on their face. People their spouses or their siblings or their children can hardly deal with them. Why? Because they're hungry. Why? Because they're thirsty. Why? So this is against the spirit. This contradicts the spirit of fasting. Yeah, you should be in a state of tranquility and ease and peace. And this peace should almost transcend to the rest of your families, especially if you're the leader of your household, you're the older sibling, or you're the father, the children. If you're one of the senior members of the household, right, it is even more incumbent upon you to lead by example. Yeah, to be in a state of tranquility, in a state of ease and peace and calmness and self-composure. And he also said, Jabir ibn Abdullah, he said, وَلَا تَجْعَلْ يَوْمَ صَوْمِكَ وَيَوْمَ فِطْرِكَ سَوَاء. Yeah, and don't make your fasting day and your non-fasting day equal. And your attitude towards your fasting day should be much more strict. You should be in a state of complete muraqabah, complete vigilance, complete to the fullest extent, the complete God consciousness, always trying to be aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will with regards to everything that you do, everything that you say, every activity that you indulge in should have the state of vigilance. Is this in line with the spirit of fasting or not? And if we're human beings, sometimes we fall outside of this. So to always be in a state of vigilance, it doesn't mean that you are always going to stop yourself from falling into a mistake, right? From falling into something that is unbefitting of a fasting person. It's not always going to happen. But if you're in a state of vigilance, even if it doesn't prevent you, at least it will sort of notify you even after the action, so that you can go and make amends and rectify that misdeed, right? So number one, as the advice of Jabir ibn Abdullah goes, stay away from the haram before you start doing the halal. The second advice that I want to give the viewers, and also remind myself, inshallah, is to live with the Quran, to accompany the Quran. To live and accompany the Quran, it doesn't just mean to recite the Quran. It doesn't just mean to be focused and obsessed with the quantity of the Quran that you read. Rather, to live with the Quran, right, and to be a companion of the Quran, you need to read it correctly with tajweed, the way it was revealed upon the Prophet ﷺ. You also need to understand the meaning of what you're reciting. If you want to truly live with the Quran, right, you need to sort of stop and repeat the ayat, repeat the verses. Make sure that you fully understand what lies therein, the meanings and the gems that lie therein. Also ponder upon the meanings of the ayat, right? Ponder upon them. Also try to memorize them to the best of your ability, whatever you can. So live with the Quran in this way. Also, many of you probably are aware of the hadith about the virtue of reading the Quran correctly, right? The Prophet ﷺ said, الذي يقرأ القرآن وهو ماهر به. The one who reads the Quran and he is very proficient in his reading, and he reads it, he implements the rules of tajweed, he reads it in a proper way. مع السفرة الكرام البررة. Yani he will be associated, or he will be with, or associated with, the honorable, obedient scribes from amongst the angels. Like he's going to be associated almost with the angels. That's the honor that he's going to be given, because of the quality and the proficiency and the khushu' with which he's reading the Quran. And the Prophet ﷺ also went on to say, وَالَّذِي يَقْرَأُ الْقُرْآنَ وَيَتَتَعْتَعُ فِيهِ, or in a different way, وَيَتَنَعْنَعُ فِيهِ وَيَتَتَعْتَعُ فِيهِ. Whoever reads the Quran and he finds it difficult, he stutters along as he's reading, right? وَيَتَتَعْتَعُ فِيهِ وَهُوَ عَلَيْهِ شَاقٌ, and it's difficult for him to carry on reading, but he perseveres and he doesn't give up. لَهُ أَجْرَانِ, he will have two rewards. One reward for reading and one reward for persevering. And when we say here he's going to have, the person that struggles and stutters has two rewards, it doesn't mean he has double the reward of the person who was proficient, because this will be kind of unfair, isn't it? The person that's proficient, he's put in the effort, he's reading the Quran beautifully, so his recitation, he will have more reward, inshallah. But as for this person who is stuttering and is struggling along, Allah out of his mercy will reward him not only for the reading, for every single word. There's a number of hasanat, as you're well aware, right? I believe is the hadith says that there's 10 hasanat for every letter that you recite, and the brothers can correct me on this, you can verify this. There's about 10 hasanat for every single, 10 rewards for every single letter that you recite. Yeah, yani this will be double for you, in the sense that you'll have that reward for reading, and also you'll have the same reward for the fact that you persevered and you did not give up. So let's have inshallah this kind of attitude when it comes to our reading, recitation of the Quran. Yeah, and let's not always be, as I said, I mentioned in the beginning, right? You need to fulfill the rest of the Quran. So do not be obsessed, with just finishing the surah, and not reading it correctly, barely implementing the rules of tajweed. Try to be modest and moderate with the way you approach the Quran, inshallah. Look at the time, inshallah. I'm sorry, I'm not sure how long these reminders last. Are they 15 minutes or half an hour? Sheikh Abdul Rahman, can you please send me a text message here? I don't want to prolong upon the viewers. 20 minutes. Okay, I'll wrap it up inshallah in a few minutes. Yeah. So let's try to live with the Quran, right? And improve our relationship with the Quran, inshallah. Number 3, we'll end with this, inshallah. The third practical way in which you can achieve taqwa. So the first one we said, just to remind you, was staying away from the haram. Okay. Yeah. And number 2 was live with the Quran, strengthen, nourish your relationship with the Quran. And number three, we'll end, there's many other practical ways we will end on this, is be generous in the month of Ramadan. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with wealth, then use the wealth and spend it in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Give sadaqah, give charity. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, in a hadith is recorded, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان أجود الناس. He used to be the most generous. He was the most generous from the people, amongst the people. وكان أجود ما يكون في رمضان. But he used to be even more. He used to be even more generous during the month of Ramadan. Yeah. So the amount of sadaqah that we give, it should exceed the amount of sadaqah that we give in other months. Yeah. So use this means as well, inshaAllah, towards achieving taqwa as often and as much as possible. We'll suffice with that, inshaAllah ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khair for listening. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the ability to understand and to take on the points that we've mentioned today, and to inshallah implement them in our day-to-day lives. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this Ramadan for us and make it our best and most productive one to date. Jazakumullahu khair.